20 minutes ago this was a rusty old hatchet head I found lying around. I polished it up and I noticed that it says CK German make on it. And I thought it might be fun to turn it into a sort of Saxon war axe. We see so many of these pointy Viking things on YouTube. I thought it might be fun to turn it into something similar but slightly different. And I've already started, as you can see, before I began filming in my impatience. But you can see, I hope, the line which I intend to follow here. I've just taken a couple of bites out of it, and I'm keeping it cool by dipping it into this bowl of replica Saxon water. And it's not just the workpiece that needs to be cooled. I keep stopping and popping the grinder in the fridge for 5 minutes. Here it is now that I've snipped the bits out. I'm just going over to a grinding disc. Okay, we're approaching the shape I had in mind. I've been fortunate in that I've been able to keep hold of these runes. CK German make, which prove its Saxon origins beyond doubt. When I first started work on this piece, it had been very heavily mushroomed out where it had been hit with a hammer a great deal over the years. I ground those portions off the sides, but I left one on the top. It reminds me of the blade for a gun's rear sight. I just left it there because it's a nod to the history of this hatchet before I bastardized it into an ancient Saxon war axe. As can be seen here, the finish isn't very good, so there's more work to be done, but at least I've got an idea of the shape that I want, and I'm happy with the shape that I've achieved. That's the finish to the top. On the underside, where it's harder to get in, I was able to use that little grindstone and get this quite nicely. There's a little bit more work to be done in here. There, that's better. I've got the head pretty much as I want it. Now, it had been my intention to find a nice piece of hardwood and make a handle for this, but the other day I was in a garden centre, and amongst all the fully intact axes there was this. It was being sold very cheaply as it had no packaging. 16 inches long, 16 and a half actually, so I bought it. It was really cheap, cheaper than the piece of wood to make the handle would have been. Apparently this wood is ash, which is appropriate for a Saxon axe. I do like the simplicity of the shape. It does have a very subtle finish on it, so I'll sand that off before I do anything else. Well, that really was just the lightest possible layer of matte lacquer, and it vanished as soon as it saw the 80 grit sandpaper on my bench sander. However, all is not completely rosy because this doesn't fit. Thankfully the handle is too big for the eye and the axe and not vice versa, so more work will be required. Okay, it's stuck in there at the moment, but we do get a clue. There's this curled up, rucked up material on this side, yet none here. So that tells me where I need to sand some more. We've come a fair bit further, and now the rucking is at the back. So I've got to get this head off and sort that out, and it'll go on a little bit further still. It's on all the way. It does, however, tilt back a little bit. There's nothing I can do about it. It's to do with the angle at which the eye is cast into the head. The only thing I could do is remove this because when I hold it by that, this would strike square to the workpiece. There, that's better. It sits at a more forward leaning angle in my hand now. We're getting closer to having a usable axe. I have cut myself a thin wedge from a piece of hardwood to mount the head, but before I mount the head there's one more thing I'd like to do. I removed some material from here to try and get the cutting edge of the axe to line up with the workpiece when I hold it. Unfortunately, that's made it quite difficult to grip. So what I'm going to do is whip the handle. I've watched the appropriate number of YouTube videos on how to do this. I've rubber banded a piece of string in a long loop. That stain is super glue, which has done nothing so far but glue my right forefinger to my upper lip for a while off camera, which hindered productivity. However, I'm going around as tightly as I can, and now that we've arrived, apparently what I do is cut this off, poke it through there and pull. Let's see if it's all true. Poke that through there and grab the spare end of this. I'm going to need some vice grips. Well, I had underestimated quite how hard I'd have to pull. In the end I had to put this end in a bench vise and heave with all my might before I could pull that loop down into there. But now I've done that, I gather I cut the ends off flush. Well, having trimmed off the string at either end, I briefly held it in a flame to get rid of all the hairy bits of string, and now I'm going to do something unusual. I'm going to souse it in this stuff. It's a building product. It's basically like very, very watered down PVA wood glue, and I did it before to great effect when I whipped the head of my spear. Here's the handle, drenched in the PVA. I'm going to leave this out in the sun all day tomorrow, I think, and have a look at it after that. If I cut this thing off about here, and then cover it in wood glue, we should be able to drive this down into here with a hammer. Well, I now realise how useful the glue is as a lubricant when you're doing this. I'll let all this go off, cut it off flush, and see how firmly the head is held in place. Okay, the glue's gone off. Well, I'd like to protect the wood with some sort of protective coating. I've been up to the garage and had a look around, and all I can find is this stuff. It says that it's the modern replacement for traditional creosote. I can tell you that it smells like creosote, and I miss that smell, so this is what I'm going to be using. Right, stuff's very runny. I don't think I'll need very much to coat it once. Should I put it on the string? I think I'll start by not putting it on the string and see how it looks, because once it's on the string the stuff is going to stink every time I pick it up. I'm going to get creosote on my hands. I put it on the top? I think I'll put it on the top. And I'll put it down all around the butt. I'll leave that in the sun and see how it looks once it's dried off. A Saxon war axe. Let's test it. What can I chop up? Well, I've got this tree. I'm going to leave the twine binding as it is. I think it'll naturally get dirty and go darker over time. So, Saxon war axe. Thanks for watching.